I was that guy, right? And I met the motorcycle dudes when I was young, 15 and
How'd
16
that
years old,
happen?
in a gym. There was a gym in my neighborhood, and you paid $10, I believe, and you got a key, and it was the size of your gym in the garage, right? And just the key, you can go anytime. I was in there as a youngster. I loved bodybuilding, flipping the magazines and seeing, the greats, the Lee Haney and the Lee Libratas. And I loved the bodybuilding. And there was these three dudes in there that were training in jeans, no shirts, concrete guys and stuff. And they showed me how to train. Like, hey, kid, that ain't right. Do this, do that. And they showed me the old school way of training. Lo and behold, they were members of the Hell's Henchmen, which we were before we patched over to Hell's Angels in Chicago. And I didn't know that for, maybe, close to, 8 months, a year later. I didn't know because they came in their vehicles, or if they came on their bikes, they didn't, they were training, so they didn't have their patch on. So it's a funny story. I say the same guys that showed me how to train the old school way and, get bodybuilding big, showed me how to live the motorcycle lifestyle, right? The one percenter lifestyle.
And at that point, like what kind, like how would you describe yourself at that, like a kid going into that gym? What kind of kid were you?
Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, eager to learn. I wanted to be He-Man was the He-Man, cartoon figure was my, I had the blonde hair and I was like, man, I love this. And I said, I was inspired by that. So I wanted to, take my body to that level. I wanted to be big and not, I didn't know I was ever going to become what I became, right? I
Right.
always wanted to get big in the bodybuilding work because I loved it. I loved training my body. I loved watching it grow. I loved the discipline it took to eat and everything that these guys showed me. And I say a funny story is they all wore jeans. Most biker dudes ain't training legs, but to be a bodybuilder and stuff and to be up on them stages like I wanted to do when I was younger, you're training legs. So I trained legs and stuff, and I was able to grow and stuff. So I was bright-eyed, right, to learn from these cats. And then, as I found out who they were, and then I seen, wow, these guys are, I like this part, and
What did you like about it?
the camaraderie I seen. I like bikes. I grew up with some dirt bikes and stuff like that. I like the Harleys. And then the camaraderie and the brotherhood that I seen. And then they took me down to the clubhouse and, I'm 17, 18 years old and I started to see what was going on there.
But I
And
mean, that's not normal, right? I mean, like what was it about you that they saw at 17 years old to take you down to the clubhouse?
you know, I think that it was just that I was eager. I listened to them. I watched them. I got kicked out of school before I was 16. I socked the principal. I was getting thrown out. There was a fight in school with some different neighborhood people, right? And me being one of them, we got into a fight in there. And I was in the principal's office. He was in the other. He was in his office. I was in the waiting room and he was with my mom. My mom, an old Italian lady, right? And raises our family close, very close knit family. So when they got me in the office and stuff, he had this attitude, and he told my ma, we're suspending them. I wish these parents here knew how to raise their kids, and my mom was just listening to him and stuff, and kind of was mad at me that I was getting in a fight in school and stuff, and I just seen the way he was talking, and I didn't like the disrespect that he had, and I jumped over the desk and socked him in the nose, right, and then I had to hightail it out of there and run through the neighborhoods and try to get back to my family's home where I lived. But by the time it took me 20 minutes, and by the time I got there, the cops were there waiting for me. So we went back there and everything, and no charges pressed. And my mom signed me out. I said, I don't want to go to school anymore. And she said, okay. So she had to sign me out. I wasn't 16, so she signed me out, and I jumped in the family pool we had and just started lounging around in